New York City has given us a lot of things, but the best thing it ever gave us was a punk rock group called the Ramones.
Dee Dee, Johnny, Joey, and Marky Ramone, four psychotic juvenile delinquents from New York City who invented punk rock.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The legendary Ramones created the blueprint for what is now referred to as alternative rock.
Hey, oh, let's go. Sheila is a ball like a gabba gabba weeks after weeks after one of us beats on the brass with a baseball bat. Oh yeah, the kids my baby away. Rock, 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 rock away, bitch. I'm living on a Chinese rock. 50 I'm trying to turn a trick. Psychotherapy, because I wanna be a boyfriend. I don't wanna be buried in a pet cemetery. Bam, 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 bam. I wanna be civilian.
Even if you're not a fan of the Ramones, and I can't for the life of me imagine that there's too many people out there in the world who aren't, but even if you're not, you're still going to want to read this book. It's called Poisoned Heart, I Married Dee Dee Ramone, A Punk Love Story. It was written by Dee Dee Ramone's widow. She was married to Dee Dee from 1978 to 1995. A lot of ups and a whole lot of downs. We're lucky enough to have her on the show this week, Miss Vera Ramone King.
Well, I just wanna walk right out of this world, 'cause everybody has a poison heart.
We're looking for Vera Ramone King.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for calling.
Yeah, Vera, tell us a little bit about the book, Poisoned Heart, and why you decided to write it.
I wrote the book for a number of reasons. I think that I wanted to set the record straight and not just have his legacy be remembered as a drug-crazed heroin punk rocker. I wanted people to know that he had another wonderful side to him, and he was kind and funny. He was generous to a fault. He was loving. He was great to his fans. He was very gifted and talented. And I wanted to have his legacy continue, and that his fans should know both sides to him. And he had more than two. He was multi-talented, and he had a lot of sides to him. He was just a wonderful guy.
Now, he wrote most of the songs for the Ramones.
He wrote most of the songs, and then Joey wrote quite a few also.
Do you have any favorites?
I do. I have a lot of favorites. I think one of the songs that has a very personal meaning to me is a song called Baby Doll that he wrote for me. Another song that I love is his Chinese Rocks, Love Kills, Rockaway Beach, Something to Believe In, Too Tough to Die.
There's so many great ones out there.
There are. I mean, you could go on and on. I think they've wrote a couple hundred songs. They really have quite a few out there.
Now, where can we pick up the book, Poisoned Heart, I Married Dee Dee Ramone, A Punk Love Story? Where can we pick that up at?
The book can be ordered on Amazon.com. It was all, I don't know if the Barnes & Nobles are sold out, if they reordered. It was available in Barnes & Noble, as well as all the border stores, and even Best Buy's had them.
It's a must-have for any Ramones fan out there. Even if you're not a huge fan of punk rock or the Ramones, like I said earlier in the show, you're going to find this book captivating. My wife, not the biggest Ramones fan, but she can't put the book down because it's such a great story. It's really interesting how you wrote this and the insight you give it. I mean, it's a brutal love story.
It's a punk love story. It's about loving someone so much that at some point, you know, you have to let go of the person that you love. And that's one of the, when we broke up, we didn't stop loving each other. It was a lot of other things, and I had to let go, and it was very painful to let go of someone that you cared for so deeply. And I never stopped loving him.
Now, for those of you that don't know, we unfortunately lost Dee Dee Ramone in 2002 after a heroin overdose. His estate actually tried to stop this book from being released. Vera, why do you think that is? Did you put too much in the book? Was it too revealing? What's your take on that?
No, I think they were afraid that I was going to write a lot more other stuff. And obviously there's a lot of things that I've left out.
Wow.
I didn't want to embarrass anybody. I didn't want to hurt anybody. And certain things will remain private and will go with me to my grave. But I think they were more afraid of what I was going to write, if anything.
Well, you're telling me there's more than what's in the book?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. I could write another volume.
Has there ever been any talk about...
It would make your hair stand up, probably.
I can only imagine, because the book is... I got to admit, it's pretty outrageous. I mean, there's some dark times there, but you also balance it out with a lot of fun times as well.
Well, life is a balance. If you can't balance it out, then it's no fun. Obviously, with a lot of bad, there has to be some good. Otherwise, you wouldn't stay with that person. So, we had a lot of great times, as well as a lot of challenges that we faced together. And I think that we made the best of it that we could, as well as we could. We were young, and it's not always easy, especially when there's drugs involved.
Would you mind talking a little bit about the infamous Ramones curse? You were present the night that it all went down. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Just tremendous stuff.
It was wintertime. We were in Tulsa, Oklahoma, just played a gig. It was a Saturday night. And the show went off better than we had thought. We didn't know what kind of crowd we'd have. And usually after the shows, the band is met in the parking lot with lots of fans to sign autographs and have pictures taken with, or have the album covers autographed as well. Just, stuff like that.
Sure.
This particular night, it was pouring rain, and there was a fellow standing out there with, like, one of those long, dark, black leather trench coats like those Columbine kids wore.
Right.
And he had a hat on. He was holding a Bible in one hand, a crucifix in the other. And as we got into the parking lot, we thought that they were going to ask for autographs. And so, we let the guys, go to their fans and stuff. But instead, he walked up to each and every one of them, and he started to try to get them to repent for their sins and just some crazy, off-the-wall stuff. I think we didn't know what we were really listening to. And he had a following there with him. He had a group of people, probably about 10 people that were with him. And at some point, the band just, were like looking at each other and didn't answer him, and we started to ignore him as we were getting into the van. And at some point, John just turned around and said, "Monty, get rid of this nut job,"
Right.
And that's when this guy just started to read from this book, and he started. What sounded like to me, I don't know what a curse really sounds like, but it sounded like something evil. He was like chanting,
right?
And they were all repeating it, every single thing that he said, and it gave us all the creeps. And we piled into the van. And nobody spoke. Usually, everybody was like, well, that was a good show, but you messed up over there, or you missed that, or did you see that guy in the front row? Just regular stuff,
Right.
And this night, none of us spoke. We were all just really, really quiet. And then after about 5 minutes, Dee Dee goes, "That guy gave me the creeps," and we were on our way to the 7-Eleven then. It always stood out in my mind. And then after they all got to be about 50. I mean, Joey was about 2 weeks shy of his 50th birthday. Dee Dee was probably 3 months shy of his 50th birthday. John was about 50 when he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. I was 50 when I was diagnosed with brain cancer. I mean, the list went on, that it clicked in my head. I said, gee, what is this, And I remember that incident, and I was like, it couldn't possibly have anything to have done with that, with that particular night. but maybe it did. I really didn't know what to make of it, so I just sort of wrote about it in the book, and a lot of people have asked me about it. It was just, it was very eerie and uncomfortable.
You know, they say Dee Dee's life was out of control. Do you agree with the media and everybody who says you were kind of like his babysitter in the beginning?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, Dee Dee was, he was very focused on, you know, whatever Dee Dee wanted, Dee Dee got, you know, and nobody was going to tell him different. And there were very few people that could reason with him, and I was probably one of them. And he listened to me, more or less.
Right.
Probably more than less. But he was very hard to control or to talk to if he wanted something and he wanted to go somewhere or he wanted to do something. There was nobody that was going to stop him. He was really hard to live with when he was younger. I mean, if he died at the age of 50 from an overdose, you can only imagine what he was like in his 20s and 30s.
Did they ever act like rock stars?
They never acted like rock stars. They were always very. When they saw their fans, they were like they're meeting their friends or something. They loved all their fans. They never had like this attitude where, oh, don't bother me, or I'm too big for this, or, you know, get away from me. A lot of these people today, a lot of the stars in general are very like, don't come near me, they need bodyguards and all this. The Ramones were very unpretentious. They were one of the people.
Exactly.
They knew what it was like to be the underdog, you know?
Right.
Because for so long, that's how they were. They couldn't get airplay no matter how hard they tried. They made a movie. They worked with Phil Spector. They still couldn't get played.
Now, were you around any of those Phil Spector sessions?
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah. What was that like?
I think I talk about that in the book, too, when we went to his house. And, you know, Phil was Phil. You know, he was very eccentric, and he had everybody wait for over an hour after we were in his house. We hung out with Grandpa Munster in the living room.
Wow.
Waiting for him to come down and make his grand entrance from the spiral staircase. He was quite something and kept us up till about, he didn't want us to leave. It was 5 in the morning. We were exhausted. We wanted to leave. John got out about 12, but he couldn't understand why Dee Dee and I wanted to leave at 5 a.m. He thought it was early.
Wow.
So he left, I think, at about 9 a.m. But that was still, you know, he was a night person. And you couldn't just get up and walk out because you had to be buzzed in through a gate at the front. Then you had to be buzzed in through the front door. And then there was a second door to the front to get into the house. So it was the same thing getting out. He had to let you out. Otherwise, you were stuck there. You couldn't get out. It was, you know, it was pretty intense. I had never seen anything like that in my life. Cameras everywhere, and the electronic gate, and just.
It always seems that the brilliant ones are a little off their rocker.
Excuse me, the what?
The brilliant ones, the genius, the eccentric, the creative ones.
It seems like, when they say there's a fine line between genius and insanity, I think that's where they get that from, because people like that are borderline, and I think Dee Dee had a little bit of, not a little bit, I think he was definitely there too.
Sure.
He could swing both ways.
Literally.
Literally. Literally, yeah.
This is kind of a two-parter. What do you miss most about those days, and what do you miss least about those days?
What do I miss the most? I don't really know that I miss anything. Been there, done that. I have a great life now.
Sure.
I'm happy. I'm in a good place. I don't miss all the drama, the soap opera. If there was a reality show in those days, Dee Dee would have given Ozzy Osbourne a run for his money.
Oh, I can only imagine. Jeez.
Every day was a new adventure, a new drama, a new something. He lived for that. That this was our life, So I can't say that I miss that. You can only do that for so long. You get burned out.
I know in the early years, in the very beginning, they were really close, almost like family. Was that the case at the end of their career, the relationship between the members of the band?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was a working relationship. At some time, at some point when we were on tour, they wouldn't even go up to the desk, to the front desk at the hotel, and pick up their keys at the same time together. They would go up there separately to get their keys to their room. They didn't want to eat at the same. When we would stop at a rest stop to eat, everyone would sit in a different corner of the restaurant. Johnny would usually sit at the counter with his back faced towards everybody.
What do you think attributed to that? Was that just so many years on the road together, burnt out on each other's company? What's your take on that?
I think it was a number of things. At one point, Joey's girlfriend left him and went with John and eventually married him, which really hurt Joey tremendously, and we had to witness all this going on. It kind of broke the band up into different camps,
Right.
And it wasn't pleasant for any of us to have to see this on a daily basis. Also, it was just too much togetherness breeds hostility. Sure. And when you're traveling together in a bus or whatever transportation it is that we were using at the time, every day for 3 months at a time, being together practically 24/7, if not 16 hours a day, it's about more than anyone could take. I think, that love just went out the window. You can't do that. It's not healthy.
We're speaking to the widow of Dee Dee Ramone, Miss Vera Ramone King. She's written a book. It's called Poisoned Heart, I Married Dee Dee Ramone, a punk love story. If you want to pick it up, folks, I highly recommend it. Check it out on Amazon. It's all over the internet. Pick it up. Do yourself a favor. Vera, you talk a little bit in the book about Sid Vicious. Now, you and Dee Dee actually used to hang out with Sid and Nancy.
I wouldn't say that we hung out with them. They lived in England and we lived here, and we were always working and on the road. Yeah, we partied with them a couple times, but I really wouldn't say that we hung out on a regular basis because we were hardly in the same country or the same state at the same time, the same city.
Any thoughts on what their relationship was like on a professional level? Some of the great debates in rock and roll, one of the biggest debates is who was more influential in punk rock or who invented punk. Was it the Ramones? Was it the Pistols? But between the two camps, do you think that there was a mutual respect that existed?
I think there was a lot of mutual respect. Actually, when the Ramones went to England, when they played in London in '76, the Sex Pistols didn't even exist then, and all these bands came backstage when they weren't bands yet, like Joe Strummer and Paul Simonon and Susie Sue and Chrissie Hynde, Johnny Rotten, Sid Vicious. They all came back there and said, wow, we're going to start a band. That was great. We're going to start a band. And even when we were in Ireland, I think a 17-year-old Bono came backstage in Belfast and said, wow, you guys were great. We're going to start a band.
Wow.
And you know what? All these people became so famous, and the Sex Pistols became really famous, and they sort of took the punk rock crown away from the Ramones, but really the Ramones were there first.
Do you think the guys had any idea of how influential they had become over the years in the music industry, or what kind of impact they had on not just pop culture, but society in general?
I don't think they ever realized the greatness that they had achieved, or the impact that was going to be left after they were gone. I totally believe that they had no idea that they were that influential.
Yeah, my son has a Ramones onesie, and I say to myself, did the Ramones know this was going to happen when they were jamming, at CBGB's? Did they have any clue that this is where it would end up?
Absolutely not. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was at the mall the other day, and I saw a little baby, like probably a 1-year-old, maybe less, wearing a onesie. And then 3 days later, I saw a 60-year-old wearing a Ramones shirt. And I was saying, God, if they could only be here now to see this now, what they've done, what they've accomplished. And it's sad that they never got a chance to see this and enjoy it. It's pretty sad.
You're proud of the book, aren't you?
I'm glad I wrote it for a number of reasons. To me, it was a lot of healing.
Sure.
And probably like 10 years worth of therapy.
Sure.
To get a lot of this off my chest, and I'm happy I wrote it. I don't feel bitter about anything. I don't regret anything. If anything, it's made me who I am today, and I wouldn't change a thing.
I'm going to ask you one last question.
Sure.
And this really doesn't have too much to do with the book. It's just, as a fan, kind of a personal curiosity. Given that Dee Dee wrote a lot of the songs, could you give us some insight as to what a writing session was like with Dee Dee, if you were present during those, and how he actually wrote his songs?
Well, he would wake up in the morning and smoke about, I don't know, maybe 3-4 joints and have about 4 iced coffees, and then he would start to write. And it was whatever came into his head during the day. If I'd say to him, you know what, we would see something or whatever, something would come up or someone would say something, I'd turn around and say, gee, that would make a great song. Well, he'd sit down and start writing a song. I mean, he could write a song in like a couple hours.
Wow.
And he just wrote like almost a song a day. He was consumed with writing all the time. Some songs were better than others. A lot of songs didn't make it to the albums. I still have 27 unrecorded demos in a shoebox that have never been heard. And one day I hope to release them. But it's really hard to copyright a dead person's music.
Wow, that would be great. That would be great to see.
But I do have a lot of music that's still never been heard.
Well, thank you so much. Like I said, it's a blast. I'm a huge fan of the Ramones, and to speak to you, it's just great. Thank you so much.
The pleasure is mine.
Take care.
Bye-bye.